The council chamber was silent as Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive room. He was alone, representing all of humanity before the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy. The room floated in space, orbiting a dying star that pulsed with strange light. Around him sat creatures from worlds he had never visited, speaking languages that required machines to translate into words he could understand. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that looking at them too long made his head hurt. They had been debating for 3 hours now, and Jake knew the decision had already been made before he ever walked through those doors. The head counselor was a being called Velquin, something ancient and wise from a race that had been traveling the stars when humans were still living in caves. Its voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder, translated into cold mechanical words that echoed in Jake's earpiece. The verdict was simple and brutal. Humanity had broken the rules too many times. They had expanded their colonies too fast, pushed into territories marked as forbidden, and built outposts in regions of space where no young species should ever go. The council had decided that humans were dangerous not because they were evil, but because they refused to wait their turn and follow the ancient laws that kept the galaxy peaceful. The punishment was something that had never been done before in 3,000 years of galactic history. Earth and all its known colonies would be sealed inside an energy barrier, cut off from the rest of the galaxy forever. No ships in, no ships out, no trade, no communication, no chance to ever rejoin the galactic community. Any ship that tried to cross the barrier would be destroyed instantly. Humanity would be left alone in their cage 50 light years across until they learned their place in the cosmic order. Maybe in 1,000 years, Velquin said. Humans would be ready to behave like proper civilized beings. Jake listened to all of this without showing any emotion on his face. When they asked if he had anything to say, he only asked one question. How long would this punishment last? Forever, they told him, or until humanity proved they had changed. Jake nodded slowly and said nothing more. As the guards escorted him from the chamber, he passed by other alien diplomats who watched from viewing galleries above. Some looked sad, others looked satisfied, happy to see the aggressive humans finally put in their place. One alien, a traitor he had met before at a border station, caught his eye and seemed confused. The traitor mouthed a single word that Jake could read even without translation. Why? Why are you not angry? Why are you not begging? Why do you look almost calm? Jake's response was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. He knew something that none of them knew. The council thought they had won, thought they had contained the human threat. They had no idea what was really happening. Far away on Earth, deep underground in a facility hidden beneath mountains, Director Linda Hayes sat in a command center surrounded by screens and holographic displays. She was watching the trial through a live feed, waiting for the moment when Velquin would pronounce the sentence. When the words came through, she closed her eyes for just a second, letting out a breath she had been holding for months. Then she turned to the 100 men and women gathered in the room with her, military officers and scientists and engineers who had been working in secret for years. She spoke clearly so everyone could hear. The council has taken the bait. Operation Exodus is now active. You have 72 hours before the barrier goes up. Make sure all our people are in position. The holographic display in the center of the room changed, showing a map of the entire galaxy. Red lights marked council territory, thousands of star systems under their control. Blue lights marked Earth and the 30 official human colonies that everyone knew about, the ones the council had been watching carefully. Then Linda pressed a button and the display changed again. Green lights appeared, scattered across the galaxy like seeds blown by the wind. Hundreds of them in systems the council thought were empty or worthless. 300 hidden ships carrying 20 million people, who had left Earth in secret over the past 30 years. People who had volunteered to leave everything behind, to live in hiding, waiting for the day when Earth would be trapped and they would be free. The council had been so busy watching the official colonies that they never noticed the ghost ships slipping away into deep space, one or two at a time, disguised as mining vessels or research expeditions. They had been hiding in gas giant atmospheres on frozen moons and asteroid fields, anywhere sensors could not easily find them. 20 million humans spread across 200 star systems, building small colonies in silence, raising children who were born free of council rules, preparing for this exact moment. Captain Lisa Chen sat on the bridge of her ship, the Wanderer, deep inside the atmosphere of a gas giant 90 light-years from Earth. Her crew of 600 families had been living here for 2 years. Hidden by the electromagnetic storms that raged around them constantly, the children had never seen a real sky, only the swirling chaos of hydrogen and helium that pressed against the ship's shields every moment of every day. When the message came through from Earth, encrypted and brief, Lisa read it twice to make sure she understood. All ships, this is Exodus Command. The trap has sprung. You are now the free humans. Build well, stay hidden, and remember that they think we are contained. Let us show them what desperate humans can do when everyone underestimates them. Lisa looked at her second in command, a young pilot named Danny Foster, who had been born on the journey from Earth and had never seen the homeworld except in pictures. She asked him if he was ready to stop hiding. Danny's face broke into a wide grin. He had been ready his whole life, he said. All across the galaxy, in systems the Council ignored, human lights began turning on. Not all at once, because that would be noticed. Slowly, carefully, like stars appearing in the evening sky one by one. The great game had begun, and the Council had no idea they had already lost. On Earth, as the barrier began to form in space around their solar system, a wall of shimmering energy that would soon trap billions of humans inside, Director Linda Hayes sent one final message to the hidden fleet. Her voice was calm but fierce, the voice of someone who had spent decades planning for this moment. This is not exile, she said. This is liberation. They have locked away our cradle, but we have already left the crib. Go forth and thrive. Make them regret underestimating the species that crawled out of caves to touch the stars in just 10,000 years. The message ended, and the barrier sealed shut, trapping Earth and its nearby colonies in a prison of energy. To the Council, it looked like victory. To humanity, it looked like the greatest magic trick ever performed. While everyone was watching the cage being built, the prisoner had already escaped. 20 years had passed since the barrier went up around Earth, and the galaxy had moved on. The Celestial Dominion congratulated itself on solving the human problem. In council meetings, representatives from the 12 founding species would occasionally mention Earth as a warning to younger civilizations. Expand too quickly and you will be stopped, they said. Follow the rules or face isolation. It became a story that parents told their children, a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition without wisdom. Inside the barrier, Earth had not collapsed as some had predicted. The 50-light-year bubble had become a fortress, a laboratory, a testament to human stubbornness. Unable to expand outward, humanity had expanded inward, building structures in space that stretched for miles, creating closed ecosystems that could sustain millions, pushing every technology to its absolute limit. They turned their prison into something beautiful and terrifying, a civilization compressed and refined under pressure like carbon becoming diamond. But outside the barrier, in the shadows between the stars, the real human civilization had been growing in silence. In the Gliesa system, Captain Lisa Chen's small colony of 600 families had blossomed into a thriving world of 10 million people. They called it New Terra, and it was nothing like the crowded cities of Earth. This world had been planned from the beginning, every city built with purpose, every forest preserved with care. From space, it looked like any other planet with the right temperature and atmosphere. The planetary shield they had built made sure of that, disguising their presence by mimicking the background radiation of empty space. Lisa was no longer a captain. Now people called her Governor Chen, and the gray in her hair had become more silver than black. She stood in the Parliament building, a structure made of native stone and human engineering, welcoming representatives from 20 other hidden human colonies. Each one had its own story of survival, its own struggles and victories. Together, these colonies represented over 200 million free humans, all living beyond the Council's knowledge, all waiting for the moment when hiding would end. Governor Chen stood before the assembly and spoke in a voice that carried the weight of 2 decades. They had spent 20 years hiding, she said. 20 years becoming experts at stealth, at patience, at building civilizations that left no trace for Council censors to find. But hiding forever was never the plan. She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber, showing the galactic map in 3 dimensions. Red dots marked Council territory, vast and spread across a third of the known galaxy. Blue dots marked the human colonies inside the barrier, trapped but alive. Then she activated a new layer, and the display filled with green dots, hundreds of them, scattered like seeds across every region of space. "These are our listening posts," she explained. "Our observation stations hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae. Our agents living undercover in alien cities, working as traders and mechanics and bartenders, our sleeper cells waiting for activation codes." They had been watching the Council for 2 decades, learning everything. Trade routes, military deployments, political factions, which species were happy with the status quo and which ones were growing tired of being told what to do by the ancient powers. A representative from a colony called Haven's Gate raised his hand. His name was Peter Collins, and before the barrier he had been Earth's ambassador to an entire sector of space. He asked the question everyone was thinking. "Are we talking about revealing ourselves? The Council's fleet could destroy us all." He was not afraid, just realistic. Numbers mattered in war, and the Council had numbers. Governor Chen's response was calm but challenging. "Could they really destroy us?" she asked. "Our intelligence suggests their military is spread thin, comfortable, lazy after 800 years of peace. Meanwhile, every human child born outside the barrier has been raised knowing we live in enemy territory. We are not just colonists anymore. We are survivors with something to prove." The Parliament debated for hours, voices rising and falling in the Great Chamber. Some wanted to wait longer, to build more, to prepare for another decade. Others argued they had waited long enough, that every year in hiding was a year of freedom denied. In the end, the vote was clear. Humanity would not hide forever. Phase 2 of the plan would begin. On a moon orbiting a gas giant in the Tau Ceti system, a scientist named Dr. Karen White was making a breakthrough that would change everything. She had been working with a team of engineers for 15 years, taking apart every piece of captured alien technology they could find, reverse engineering the secrets the Council kept to themselves. They had finally cracked the code of the barrier fields, understanding not just how they worked, but how to make them better. More importantly, they discovered that the barrier around Earth could be made permeable from the inside with the right frequency modulation. Earth was not really trapped anymore. They could leave anytime they wanted. But more than that, humanity now had the ability to trap others. When Dr. White sent her findings through the hidden quantum network that connected all the human colonies, the implications spread like fire. This changed everything. The balance of power had shifted, and the Council did not even know it. Meanwhile, cracks were forming in the Celestial Dominion. A species called the Varians, reptilian traders who controlled important shipping lanes throughout the galaxy, were selling advanced technology to the highest bidders, breaking Council rules for profit. The Council's response was heavy-handed and threatening, talking about sanctions and embargoes. This made the Varians angry, and anger created opportunities. Lieutenant Commander Greg Turner had been living undercover among aliens for so long that he sometimes forgot what real Earth food tasted like. He worked as a freelance trader, moving cargo between systems, always watching and listening. His mission was simple but dangerous. Find potential allies. Find species that might stand with humanity when the time came. He arranged a meeting with a Varian trade prince in a dirty cantina on a border world where questions were not asked. The prince's name was Sethkal, and his vertical pupils watched Greg with cold calculation. Over drinks that would kill a normal human but only burned Greg's throat thanks to genetic modifications, he asked a simple question. What if I told you humanity was never contained? What if we have been out here watching and waiting and we do not like bullies? The Varian's pupils dilated with interest, a sign of surprise in their species. If that were true, Sethkal said slowly, this galaxy is about to become very interesting. The Council fears nothing more than the unknown. If humans are the ghosts they believe locked away but are actually among us, then the Council's power is built on a lie. Exactly, Greg said, sliding a data chip across the table. That chip contains coordinates. If your people ever need friends who understand being pushed around by the strong, you will know where to find us. It was a gamble, revealing themselves to an alien species. But humanity's entire strategy had been one long gamble from the beginning. As Greg left the cantina and walked into the artificial night of the station, he knew he had just lit a spark that would eventually become a wildfire. Back on New Terra, Governor Chen received reports from agents scattered across the galaxy. The pieces were moving into place exactly as planned. Hidden colonies were thriving, growing stronger every year. Potential allies were being cultivated through careful contact and mutual interest. Technology had advanced beyond what Earth achieved before the barrier, refined by necessity and isolation. Most importantly, the Council still did not know any of this existed. Her aide, a young woman named Sophie Martinez who had been born on New Terra and never seen Earth, asked how much longer they would wait. Governor Chen looked at the galactic map, at the blue sphere marking Earth's prison, at the millions of humans trapped inside who did not know their cousins were free. "Not much longer," she said quietly. "Our people have been locked away for 20 years. It is time to remind the galaxy what happens when you corner a species that survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. You do not get peace. You get determination." 43 years had passed since Earth disappeared behind the barrier, and something strange was happening in the galaxy. Ships were vanishing without explanation, not many at first, just one or two every few months, scattered across different sectors of space. The Council called them pirate attacks or navigational errors, accidents that happened in the vast darkness between stars. But the disappearances continued, and some species began whispering about ghosts, about phantom ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly, leaving no trace except empty space where vessels used to be. High Arbiter Velquin was old now, ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species. He called an emergency meeting of the Inner Council, inviting only the 6 most powerful species to attend. The Korthax, the Varians, the Crystalline Lumini, the warrior Drakthar, the aquatic Shannari, and the mysterious Whispers, who communicated through quantum entanglement rather than sound. In the sealed chamber, Velquin displayed holographic recordings of debris fields where ships had last been detected. His voice was heavy with concern as he admitted they had a problem. Analysis of the attack patterns showed technology they did not recognize. Weapons that could disable entire vessels without destroying them, then disappear before any reinforcements could arrive. A Drakthar general named War Chief Krenar, whose species prided itself on military superiority, scoffed at the presentation. "Pirates with stolen technology," he declared. "Send a battle fleet to hunt them down." Velquin's response was quiet and chilling. "We did send a fleet. 300 warships, the pride of our military. They disappeared too. We found them a week later drifting in space, every crew member unconscious but alive. Every weapon had been removed, every computer core wiped clean. No sign of who did it or how they did it so quickly." The chamber fell into shocked silence. The Lumini representative pulsed with deep blue light, their species' expression of serious concern. "This should be impossible, the crystalline being communicated. Our sensor networks cover all known space. No fleet large enough to disable 300 warships could move unseen through our territory. Unless," a Varian trade prince named Zarathos hissed slowly, "they are already among us, hidden where we do not think to look." Velquin's expression darkened as he asked what the Varian was suggesting. Zarathos spoke carefully, knowing the accusation was serious. "Perhaps the humans were cleverer than we thought. Perhaps we locked away their home but not all their people. Perhaps some of them escaped before the barrier went up." The other council members rejected this immediately. "Impossible," they said. The census before the barrier was complete and thorough. All human colonies were accounted for, every ship tracked and logged. There was no way they could have hidden an entire shadow civilization without anyone noticing. But Velquin knew something the others did not. His personal intelligence network had been investigating the disappearances quietly, and they had found something disturbing. Genetic markers, human genetic markers, in trace amounts on several of the disabled ships. Not enough to be absolutely certain, but enough to make him deeply worried. He gave orders to increase surveillance, to monitor the Earth barrier more closely, to scrutinize every trade route and scan every unexplored system. The Council began looking for signs of human presence outside their cage. They were 43 years too late to stop what was already in motion. On New Terra, Governor Chen received word that the Council was actively searching for human activity. She was in her 70s now, but still sharp-minded and decisive. She called her advisors together and announced that Phase 3 would begin immediately. Instead of hiding, humanity would start revealing itself. But carefully and strategically, giving the Council just enough truth to shake their confidence but not enough to find all the hidden colonies. A trading post appeared overnight in a remote system, operated by people who called themselves Terrans. They offered goods and technology that seemed advanced but not quite matching what humans had before the barrier. When other species asked where they came from, the Terrans smiled and pointed vaguely toward unexplored space, saying they represented a confederation of free worlds. A diplomatic envoy arrived at a Varian colony world, requesting trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The envoy wore environmental suits that hid their features, but they negotiated with a directness and creativity that reminded older Varians of the human diplomats from before the barrier. When asked directly if they were human, the envoy simply said they preferred to let their actions speak louder than their species. A rescue ship appeared at a disaster site where a Shinari orbital station was collapsing, killing thousands. The ship's crew moved with practiced efficiency, saving as many lives as possible before vanishing back into deep space. The crew were clearly human, and when Shinari officials demanded to know where they came from, the captain simply said they were in the area and could not ignore people in danger. Each incident was small enough to be deniable, but together they created an unmistakable pattern. Humans were out here in the galaxy. They had been out here for a long time. They were not hostile, but they were not hiding anymore either. The galaxy began to whisper and speculate. Message boards across 1,000 worlds lit up with theories and arguments. Some species were terrified at the idea of humans roaming free. Others were curious, even excited. The Varians, who had been secretly trading with hidden human colonies for years, quietly spread a different message through their networks. Humans were not the threat the Council claimed. They were potential partners who understood what it meant to be pushed around by those with more power. Lieutenant Commander Greg Turner, who had spent decades living undercover, now operated openly as humanity's ambassador to the independent worlds. These were the small species, the ones too weak to have council seats, always overlooked by the major powers who made all the decisions. He stood before a gathering of their representatives on a neutral station, speaking words that had been carefully chosen to resonate with their frustrations. "The council told you humanity was dangerous," Greg said, his voice carrying clearly across the crowded hall. "They said we expanded too fast, took too much, threatened the established order. Maybe we did. We were young and hungry and made mistakes. But do you want to know what crime really got us locked away?" He paused, letting the silence build, seeing the attention of every delegate focused on him. "We proved that you do not need 3,000 years of civilization to reach the stars. We went from primitive agriculture to starships in 10,000 years. We showed that any species given the freedom to try and fail and try again can rise to greatness." And that terrified the Council. Because if humans could do it, so could any of you. The hall erupted in heated debate. Greg had struck directly at the heart of their resentment. These minor species had languished under Council protection for centuries, never given real opportunities to grow. Always told they were too young or too primitive or too risky to have full rights and responsibilities in the galactic community. "We are not asking you to fight," Greg continued when the noise died down. "We are not even asking you to acknowledge us publicly, but know this. Humanity survived exile. We thrived despite impossible odds. We built a new civilization in the shadows of yours. And if you ever want to break free of chains you did not even know you were wearing, you will know where to find us." Back in the council chambers, Velquin watched recordings of Greg's speech with growing dread. His worst fears were becoming reality. Humans were not just surviving outside the barrier. They were recruiting allies, building networks, undermining the very foundations of council authority. He gave an order that would change everything. "Find their colonies," he commanded. "All of them. Map every human presence in the galaxy, and prepare the fleet for war. If humanity wants to challenge us, we will remind them why we have ruled for 3,000 years." But as his military advisors began mobilizing forces, reports flooded in from every corner of known space. Human colonies were not concentrated in one region. They were everywhere. Hundreds of worlds scattered across thousands of light years. Some were small outposts. Others were thriving civilizations with millions of inhabitants. All of them were armed, shielded, and clearly prepared for exactly this moment. War Chief Krenar reviewed the intelligence reports with growing respect mixed with concern. "These are not refugees hiding in the dark," he muttered to his staff. "These are warriors who have spent 43 years preparing for a fight. The Council may have made a terrible mistake. On Earth, inside the barrier, An old woman named Director Julia Brennan received the coded message she had been waiting for her entire career. Contact has been made. The Council knows we are out there. Phase 4 is beginning. She activated a communication system that had not been used in 4 decades, broadcasting through the barrier using the frequency modulation that Dr. Karen White had discovered years ago. Her message reached every human colony trapped inside the prison with her. People of Earth, this is Director Brennan. For 43 years we have been the galaxy's warning story. The species too dangerous to be free. But our brothers and sisters beyond this wall have prepared the way. The time has come to show the Council their mistake. Not with threats, not with violence, but the Council's investigation revealed the full scope of humanity's deception, and the political consequences were immediate and devastating. High Arbiter Velquin faced demands for his resignation from species who felt betrayed, that the human threat had never truly been contained. Others pushed for immediate military action, arguing that allowing humans to spread unchecked would undermine everything the Council had built over 3,000 years of careful governance. Captain Nathan Cross commanded the human defense fleet that had been protecting the hidden colonies for 2 decades. He received urgent intelligence from spies embedded deep in Council territory. The Council was mobilizing a force not seen in 800 years, a grand armada of 20,000 warships drawn from all 12 founding species. Their primary target was New Terra, the largest and most developed of the hidden human colonies. The mathematics of the situation were brutal and simple. Humanity's combined fleet numbered roughly 3,000 ships, and while their technology had advanced during the years of isolation, they were outnumbered nearly 7 to 1. A direct engagement would be suicide. Governor Chen called an emergency war council in New Terra's command center. Around the holographic table stood the leaders of humanity's scattered colonies, military commanders who had trained in secret, scientists who had pushed the boundaries of possible, diplomats who had built networks across alien civilizations, and ordinary people who had spent their entire lives living under the constant threat of discovery. Nathan reported the grim news with military precision. The Grand Armada was gathering at staging areas throughout Council space. Long-range scouts had tracked their movements and estimated they would arrive at New Terra in 6 weeks. The question on everyone's mind was simple but terrible. Could they evacuate 10 million people in 6 weeks? Someone suggested trying, but Nathan shook his head. Even if we could move that many people, where would they go? The Council would hunt us down world by world, system by system. There would be no safe harbor anywhere in the galaxy. Governor Chen looked at each face around the table, seeing fear but also determination burning in their eyes. These people had been born free, raised outside the Council's control, taught from childhood that their very existence was an act of defiance. They would not surrender now, would not abandon the homes they had built with decades of hard work and sacrifice. Then we do not run, she said firmly. We remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place. Dr. Karen White, now the director of all human advanced research, activated a new display that filled the center of the holographic table. We have been working on something, she explained. A modified version of the barrier technology. Instead of trapping people inside like the Council did to Earth, it creates temporary gravity wells in space. Any ship traveling faster than light that hits the field gets pulled out instantly, dropped back into normal space whether they want to or not. Nathan understood immediately. A trap. We can control where the battle happens, control the conditions, make their superior numbers work against them instead of for them. Plans were developed quickly, refined through countless simulations. Humanity would not meet the Armada in open battle where numbers would crush them. Instead, they would use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strikes, ambushes from unexpected angles, and something the Council had forgotten after 8 centuries of peace. Creativity in warfare, unpredictability, the willingness to try tactics that seemed insane until they worked. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, humanity's diplomatic efforts were paying unexpected dividends. The Varians, tired of being treated as second-class members of the Dominion, despite their economic importance, announced they were withdrawing from the Celestial Dominion entirely. 6 minor species followed within days, declaring neutrality in any conflict between humans and the Council. They would not fight for either side, but more importantly, they would not fight for the Council anymore. The Dominion began to fracture. Not catastrophically, not collapsing all at once, but developing cracks that showed weakness and made other species question their loyalty to an organization that seemed increasingly out of touch with reality. In the council chambers, War Chief Krenner argued strongly for caution and negotiation. "We are not facing scattered refugees like we imagined," he told the other counselors. "These humans have built something substantial in the shadows. They have technology, allies, and most dangerously, they have nothing left to lose. We should negotiate before starting a war that might cost us more than we can afford." But High Arbiter Velquin was beyond listening to reason. His authority had been undermined, his life's work questioned and mocked by younger species. He saw only one path forward that would restore the Council's dignity and power, crush humanity so completely that no other species would ever dare to question Council rule again. "We gave them mercy once," Velquin declared with cold anger. "We allowed Earth to survive behind its barrier instead of destroying them entirely. They repaid our mercy with deception and conspiracy. This ends now. The Armada launches in 1 week, and we will not stop until every human colony is ash." As the Council ships gathered in staging areas, Lieutenant Commander Greg Turner executed the riskiest part of humanity's plan. He returned to Earth, breaking through the barrier from the outside using the frequency modulation technology Dr. White had developed years ago. The journey was extremely dangerous. The barrier's automated defense systems attacked anything trying to pass through, treating it as a threat. Greg's small ship barely made it, shields burning away and hull breaching in 3 places before he finally broke through into the space inside. When he landed on Earth for the first time in 43 years, he was greeted by Director Julia Brennan, who had led the imprisoned humanity for the past decade. She looked at him with surprise and something like wonder. "You came back," she said quietly. "We need you," Greg told her honestly. "The Council is coming for the free colonies with everything they have, but we are not just fighting for those of us outside. We are fighting for Earth too. It is time to tear down this wall from both sides." Inside the barrier, humanity had indeed been preparing for this moment. Unable to expand outward, they had built inward with obsessive focus. Massive orbital shipyards hidden on the dark sides of moons, weapon platforms disguised as asteroids drifting in normal orbits, an entire fleet that existed only in the narrow space between Earth and the inner edge of the barrier, invisible to outside sensors. Director Brennan showed Greg what they had built over 4 decades of isolation, and he was staggered by the scale of it. "We have been waiting for this day," Brennan said with quiet pride. "Waiting for someone to try to break us or for you to come break us out. We are ready to fight." The plan crystallized in final form. When the Council Armada attacked New Terra, they would find a prepared defense using every advantage humanity could create. But the real surprise would come from Earth. The barrier would fall, and 43 years of accumulated strength and anger would pour out into the galaxy like a flood breaking through a dam. 6 weeks passed in a blur of final preparations. On New Terra, civilians moved into underground bunkers designed to survive orbital bombardment. The defense fleet positioned itself using Dr. White's gravity well generators, creating invisible traps throughout the system. Automated weapons platforms came online, their targeting systems locked and ready. Every possible advantage was leveraged, every trick prepared. On Earth, the hidden fleet prepared to launch for the first time. Millions of people who had lived their entire lives behind the barrier prepared to see open space, to join the fight for humanity's freedom. When the Council Armada finally arrived at New Terra, expecting a quick conquest and an easy victory, they instead found a carefully prepared trap. The gravity wells activated across a wide area, dragging Council ships out of faster-than-light travel in scattered groups, rather than one coordinated formation. Human ships swarmed them immediately, fast and deadly, targeting command vessels and support craft, using hit-and-run tactics that the Council forces had no experience defending against. War Chief Krenner, commanding the Armada from his flagship, recognized immediately that they had been outmaneuvered. "Fall back and regroup," he ordered. But before his forces could organize themselves properly, sensors detected something that should have been impossible. The barrier around Earth was collapsing, and through the widening gap, pouring out like a river of light and metal, came Earth's hidden fleet. 3,000 more ships carrying not just weapons but the fury of a species imprisoned for 4 decades. They did not head toward New Terra to reinforce the defense there. Instead, they struck directly at the Armada's rear, trapping the Council forces between 2 human fleets in a perfectly executed pincer movement. In the chaos and confusion of battle, Nathan Cross broadcast a message across all channels that every ship could hear. Council ships, this is Commander Nathan Cross of the Free Human Navy. You came here to destroy us. You came to prove your power and authority. But you forgot something important about humans. We do not break easily. We adapt, we endure, and we have very long memories. This fight did not need to happen. But since you forced it, we will show you what desperation looks like when it has 43 years to prepare. The battle raged for 3 days across the new Terra system, and the Council forces learned what it meant to fight an enemy who had nothing left to lose. Human ships moved with precision, born from decades of training, striking fast and vanishing before the Council could coordinate effective responses. The gravity wells continued to disrupt Council formations, pulling ships out of faster-than-light travel at unpredictable moments, scattering them across the battlefield where human forces could isolate and disable them. The Council had superior numbers, but humanity had superior tactics, better knowledge of the terrain, and most importantly, a clear understanding of what defeat would mean for their entire species. By the end of the second day, Council casualties were mounting far beyond what anyone had predicted. Ships floated dead in space, crews evacuated, but vessels stripped of weapons and left drifting. The Council forces were not being destroyed but systematically dismantled, embarrassed rather than annihilated. On the third day, with his fleet scattered and demoralized, War Chief Krenar made a decision that shocked everyone. He opened a direct communication channel to Commander Nathan Cross, broadcasting on frequencies both fleets could monitor. "Enough," the Drakthar commander said, and his voice carried a tone of respect rather than anger. "You have made your point clearly. You cannot be caged or controlled or dismissed. Continuing this fight will cost both our peoples millions of lives for nothing but pride. What do you want from us?" Nathan looked to Governor Chen, who had been coordinating the defense from New Terra's command center throughout the battle. She nodded once, giving him permission to speak for all of humanity. Nathan took a breath and responded with words that had been carefully chosen weeks ago. "We want what we have always wanted," he said clearly. "To be left alone. To explore and grow and make mistakes and learn from them without someone else deciding what we are allowed to do. We do not want to rule anyone. We do not even want revenge for the 43 years you stole from Earth. We just want freedom." Krenar was silent for a long moment before responding. "And if the Council refuses to grant this freedom, then this is not the last battle," Nathan said simply. "This is just the first. We can keep doing this for centuries if we must. We have already proven we can survive and build in secret. Can you afford to fight us for generations while your own dominion falls apart around you?" The transmission ended without another word. Krenar looked at his tactical displays showing the true cost of 3 days of fighting. Nearly 4,000 Council ships disabled or damaged. Human losses were significant, but proportionally much smaller. More importantly, he understood what Nathan had left unsaid. This battle was being watched by every species in the galaxy. If the mighty Council could not defeat a supposedly contained threat, what did that say about Council power? If they continued fighting and losing, more species would withdraw, more alliances would fracture, and the dominion that had lasted 3,000 years would crumble away. He gave the order that changed galactic history. "All Council forces withdraw immediately. Return to staging areas and await further orders." The Grand Armada, or what remained of it, began the long journey home. The Armada's retreat sent shockwaves through the entire celestial dominion. Within weeks, High Arbiter Velquin was removed from power by a coalition of reformers who understood that the old ways had failed. The new leadership included a Lumine named Crystal Mine 12, whose species believed in logic over tradition, and surprisingly War Chief Krenar himself, whose respect for human tactics had convinced him that cooperation was smarter than conquest. Negotiations began on neutral ground in a space station, built specifically for these talks by both human and Council engineers working side by side. It was a powerful symbol of what might be possible if species chose partnership over domination. Governor Chen, Director Brennan, and Commander Nathan Cross led the human delegation. Across the table sat representatives from all 12 founding species, though several chairs remained empty as some species reconsidered their membership entirely. The negotiations lasted 6 months, not because either side was stubborn, but because they were trying to create something that had never existed before. A galactic community where species of vastly different ages and capabilities could coexist as true equals, rather than masters and servants. The final agreement became known as the Terran Accords, named after the human colony world where the first free humans had thrived in secret. The Accords reshaped everything. Humanity was granted full sovereignty over all territories they currently occupied, including Earth and every colony world both inside and outside the former barrier. The barrier itself was permanently dismantled, torn down in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. The Celestial Dominion was restructured as the Galactic Cooperative, where membership was voluntary, and all species regardless of size or technological advancement had equal voting rights. Technology sharing became mandatory, ending the monopolies that had allowed older species to control younger ones for millennia. A joint peacekeeping force was established, drawing members from all species, designed to protect against external threats rather than enforce internal obedience. Not everyone was happy with the new order. Some council species saw it as shameful surrender. Some human colonies felt the Accords did not go far enough in punishing those who had imprisoned Earth. But it was a beginning, a foundation that could be built upon. Lieutenant Commander Greg Turner, in one of his final acts as a diplomat before retiring, spoke before the newly formed Cooperative Assembly. He was older now, gray-haired and bearing scars from decades of covert operations and from the battle at New Terra, but his voice was still strong and clear. 43 years ago, he said, humanity was judged dangerous because we changed too fast and refused to accept limits others set for us. The Council was right to be concerned. We were reckless and made many mistakes, but the solution was never to cage us. It was to walk beside us, to guide without controlling, to teach without dominating. We paid a high price for our freedom. So did you, fighting to keep us contained. Let us make sure that price bought something worthwhile. The speech received mixed reactions across the chamber, but it planted seeds in minds that would grow over the coming years. On New Terra, Governor Chen retired and turned leadership over to a younger generation that had never known Earth before the barrier. She spent her final years writing a comprehensive history of humanity's long game, ensuring future generations would understand both the brilliance and the terrible cost of the plan that freed them. Captain Nathan Cross became the first human admiral in the Cooperative's joint fleet, commanding a ship with a crew drawn from 8 different species. It was awkward at first with cultural misunderstandings and communication problems, but slowly it worked. The diversity of thought and approach made them stronger than any single species force could ever be. Dr. Karen White's technology-sharing initiative transformed the galaxy in ways no one had predicted. Species that had been technologically stagnant for centuries suddenly leaped forward. The Shinari developed revolutionary aquaforming techniques. The Varians cracked the problem of faster-than-light communication. Humanity contributed advances in artificial intelligence and cybernetics. Everyone benefited from everyone else's knowledge. Earth itself underwent a renaissance after the barrier fell. The population that had been trapped for 43 years spread outward again, reconnecting with colonies they had lost contact with, meeting distant cousins whose cultures had evolved in completely different directions. It was both joyous and awkward, like a family reunion after decades of separation. On the first anniversary of the barrier's fall, now celebrated as Liberation Day across all human space, Director Brennan gave a speech broadcast to 200 human worlds and reaching billions of alien viewers. "We did not defeat the Celestial Dominion," she said. "We did not win a war in any traditional sense. What we did was refuse to accept someone else's definition of our limitations. We proved that resilience and creativity matter more than age or ancient authority. We showed the galaxy that you cannot measure a species' worth by how long they have traveled the stars, but by what they do with the time they have." She paused, looking directly into the camera, knowing her words were being translated into hundreds of alien languages. The Council tried to teach us humility by caging us. Instead, they taught us patience. They tried to teach us our place. Instead, they taught us that our place is wherever we choose to make it. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from dangerous humans. They were actually protecting themselves from an uncomfortable truth that the old ways were failing and new voices were desperately needed. 50 years after the barrier fell, an aged Greg Turner sat in a frontier bar sharing drinks with a young Drakthar soldier and a Varian trader. They compared scars and swapped stories about the early chaotic days of the cooperative, laughing about misunderstandings that had seemed serious at the time, but were funny in retrospect. The Drakthar asked if it was true that humans had planned everything from the beginning, that they knew they would be caged and used it as part of some grand strategy. Greg laughed and shook his head. We were not that smart, he admitted. We got incredibly lucky. We had good people who refused to give.